Okay, let's carry on with Act 2, Scene 2. And we left off talking about the conversation with Prospero and Miranda. Prospero, I'll remind you, is a sorcerer. He is on this island that's away from everything. His dukedom was stolen by his brother, and I'll refer to this chart here. His brother Antonio stole his dukedom. Now, this was way before the beginning of the play. So long ago, maybe about 15 or 16 years prior to this scene, because when he was exiled and sent to this island, Miranda was just a baby, and now she's probably around 15 or 16. So you can guess what might be happening with this character. Could there be some love story in the works? You're probably right. So Prospero explains how they were sent on a boat and they landed on this island. And here's a line where Miranda says, "Alack, what trouble was I then to you?" As in, here you are, exiled, and you have to take care of this baby. And Prospero says, "Oh, a cherubim, which is an angel. Thou wast that did preserve me. Thou didst smile, infused with a fortitude from heaven, when I have decked the sea with drops full salt, under my burthen groaned, which raised in me an undergoing stomach to bear up against what should ensue." So basically, Prospero is saying to Miranda, you are what gave me the power to get through the situation and to survive and to adapt. Now, you might be thinking, is Prospero a good guy or a bad guy? And that's something that is an important question to ask. Miranda is very, very innocent here at the beginning. And she expresses concern about this shipwreck that she's been watching from the shore. Now, you'll remember then, or we're going to find out pretty soon, that Prospero used his magic to cause up this storm that caused the shipwreck at the beginning of scene 1. So Prospero's being a little bit manipulative here. He's got a plan, he's got a plot. Ultimately, it's try to get justice for having his dukedom stolen. But he might take a little liberties here and there at torturing people. And so we should think about if we like Prospero or not. Is he a tyrant or is he benevolent? So let's keep our eye open for that theme. So in contrast then to Prospero and his manipulative side, Miranda is very innocent and doesn't really have the capacity yet to play tricks and to form plots. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about exposition. And exposition, we get the word expose. Exposition is when, and in this case, a play, we get the backstory. We get elements of the plot that we need to know about in order to understand what's going to happen. So we need to know a little bit more about some of the characters and their past deeds. And Prospero mentions this guy named Gonzalo. We saw him frantically running around the boat in scene 1. He says that by providence divine some food we had and some fresh water that a noble Neapolitan Gonzalo, out of his charity, being then appointed master of this design, did give us, with rich garments, linens, stuffs, and necessaries, which since have steaded much. So of his gentleness, knowing I loved my books, he furnished me from mine own library with volumes that I prize above my dukedom. So make a little mental note of this guy named Gonzalo, who back in the day really did a service for Prospero and Miranda when they were sent off in a boat with just a few supplies, but enough to get by with what they needed to survive. And here they are, some odd 15 years later, on the island doing pretty well. And like I said a minute ago, this is Prospero is engineering a plot to get back at his brother and his brother's allies, and he's got some other things up his sleeve too. So let's meet some of the magical characters that are on this island. And I'm going to pause here and scroll ahead. Okay, so you'll read Prospero giving the history of how they got to the island and where they came from. And then we get these two lines here. Thou art inclined to sleep, 'tis a good dullness, and give it way. I know thou canst not choose. And then it says, Miranda sleeps. Some directors choose to make it look like Prospero has the ability to make Miranda fall asleep with his magic or some sort of hypnosis. So that's one way to think about it. He's able to make people fall asleep, wake them up at his will, which is kind of cool. So Miranda takes a nap. Whether Prospero put a spell on her or not, it's hard to say. But you should be watching out for this because he does have some power. We learn how he gets special power from this one spirit called Ariel. Ariel is sort of non-gendered, but probably was played by a man. But it's really easy to blur gender here because Ariel is a spirit. It's not really human. Ariel shows up. All hail, great master, grave sir, hail, I come to answer thy best pleasure, be it to fly, to swim, to dive into the fire, to ride on the curled clouds, to thy strong bidding task, Ariel and all his quality. And then Prospero says, did you make that storm? Did you perform the tempest that I told you to make? And then Ariel gives a report of all of the chaos that he caused, and how the ship did wreck, and where the people on the ship, what happened to them. Nobody died, but they all were sort of separated and tossed about in different places on the beach. So Ariel is going to be an important part in the story, and is sort of like Prospero's secret special spirit helper that can get a lot of this magical stuff done on the island. Okay, Prospero and Ariel have an agreement where Ariel is going to help Prospero for a certain amount of time, and then he's going to get his freedom. And so Ariel brings this up, saying, I've done thee worthy service, told thee no lies, made thee no mistakings, served without or grudge or grumblings, thou didst promise to bait me a full year. And then Prospero says, hey, wait a minute, don't forget where you came from and how I freed you. And then we get a little bit of a more backstory about where Ariel came from. And it brings up this character who we don't see in the play, but she sort of, her spirit is very much a part of the island. The witch, the foul witch, Sycorax, who with age and envy was grown into a hoop. Hast thou forgot her? So Prospero was saying, you used to be the servant of this bad witch, Sycorax. I freed you from her. She had trapped you inside of this tree, and she disappeared from the island. I'm not sure if we get the detail as to how, if she died or what happened to her. But she left behind this spirit trapped in a tree. Prospero freed her, and in exchange for, I keep on mixing up Ariel as a he or a she, because certain roles certain productions cast Ariel as a man or a woman, so I apologize if that's confusing. But the point being that Prospero has this bit of leverage over Ariel because he was the one that rescued her from being imprisoned in a tree. And so now Ariel has to do some work for Prospero to get her freedom back. Now, you might be picking up on the fact that why is it that okay, I apologize. I got interrupted, but I'm just going to keep going. So we went over Ariel and Prospero's relationship. It's sort of like a slave-master situation. Ariel, though, has a little bit more freedom than this next character we're going to meet, named Caliban. Caliban is the offspring of this witch, Sycorax, and he's part human, part devil. And we don't know exactly what that means. Obviously, he was cast as to be like some sort of hybrid of human beast character. It's strange the way that he's both human and not human. There's a lot of things about him that are very endearing and very human, but there's some things about him too that are a little bit amoral, shall we say. So Prospero, when he came to the island, found both Ariel and this Caliban figure. So let's meet Caliban. So scrolling up to around line 300, Ariel leaves. Miranda then wakes up and says, "Oh, that story made me so sleepy." Prospero says, "Shake it off. Come on. We'll visit Caliban, my slave, who never yields us kind answer." And Miranda says, "Yes, he's a villain, sir. I do not love to look on." As in, he probably looks a little, I don't want to say ugly, maybe. She doesn't like the look of him. And as you can tell, I've got a little feelings for Caliban. You know, I think he might be the victim of circumstance. In that Shakespeare has set up this again, the situation where we don't know if Prospero is a good guy or a bad guy. Here he is dominating this island, and he's taken Caliban, this sort of discarded person thing, and has turned him into his slave, and he will get him to do whatever he wants. Sounds a little bit like slavery or indentured servitude, or either or. So it's important to note that in 1611, what was England doing with certain countries that it had, quote unquote, discovered and colonized? They were in the process of setting up a large network of colonies that were run off of the backs of human labor and slavery. So Shakespeare is definitely aware of that and brings this complex moral issue into this play, which was so far ahead of his time, and something that is pretty remarkable to think about. This was all the way back in the 1600s. So here he is introducing a little bit of a race debate into the play in a very subtle way, but it's there. So it's interesting to keep that in mind as we look at Caliban and the way that he develops in the play. And Caliban, says he's pretty upfront in his dislike of Prospero. He says, "The island's mine. We were here first." Makes sense to me. He says, "You did raise me. You fed me. You taught me about, how to observe the world around me. But Caliban also had this sort of native sense of the place and showed Prospero all of the island's resources, the fresh springs, the places where you can plant things, the places where you can't. And he regrets that he did that. He gave over his power to Prospero, and he wants the island back for himself. It's a simple wish, so we can empathize a little bit with Cal.